All right. So when it comes to Matt Nagy in this situation for dynasty leagues or even like redraft leagues, how much did Justin Fields' stock rise with the news of Matt Nagy getting fired after the Thursday game?
I mean, you gotta love it, right? Like we've been saying all along, he's what's holding him back because Matt Nagy seems to have no idea what he's doing as a coach. So I mean, you have to go up from here, right?
I feel like it's a must. Like, I mean, first off, I made a really corny joke, obviously, on Twitter about how, you know, Britt's focus like a laser and how Bill Laser, stock goes up, obviously. But I mean, like, how stoked is everybody around this organization? How stoked are these players? Because the players, like, half the locker room lost them last year, the other half lost them this year. I mean, everybody has to be absolutely just, I mean, elated that he's leaving this organization. I know Bears fans are absolutely elated.
Well, and I kind of wonder too, like, Justin Fields only has bruised ribs. They're not broken. They're not. I mean, it's nothing serious. I just wonder how much he checked out because he was like, "F this. I can't continue to work under this coach." And I really would love to be a fly on that wall in that organization to see like how much their number one draft pick had to do with this and be like, "Get him out of here, or I'm out." Because if he did lose the locker room, and it seems like a lot of those players are rallying around Fields too. Oh, I just want to know the tea.
They had to have hated. I mean, like Matt Nagy like had that comment in the press conference where he was like, "We're learning things about Justin Fields now. He's getting like first team reps," and it's like, yeah, like how are we not doing this before?
You picked him as a first round pick. How did you not
Yeah,
know him before week 11? Like, what are you doing?
it's just yeah, it's none of it made sense.
It's absolutely absurd. I mean, I don't know. I'm excited for this whole entire opportunity for the Bears and the Bears offense to kind of, bust out. But why would they wait till after Thanksgiving? Were there any reports as to why they were waiting till after, what the Thursday game to actually execute with this?
Well, so if you look at what he said, he's refuting everything that happened. And he's like, no, I'm in really good communication with the ownership and this person and this person. But Virginia still owns the team. Virginia's like 102 damn years old. I I have to think that maybe she had something to do with it because she's not there on a day-to-day basis, and I don't think that she wants to see the team go to total shit before she dies, honestly, because there has been some rumors about the kids like selling off the team, getting a new stadium and this and that. There's a bunch of rumblings about that. So I think Virginia is just finally taking control.
What you're saying is she just now downloaded Twitter and she realized that Matt Nagy actually
Someone
is, right?
showed her Twitter.
It's right. Probably one of the grandkids that like was set to inherit after the parents. Like, please don't destroy my inheritance. Please make this franchise good again.
Oh man, that's absolutely brutal. But I mean, it's why don't they fire him now though? Like, what's up with not firing right now? What if the Bears go out and blow out the Lions 40-0,
Which they
probably won't.
should.
But
I
it
have to
probably won't
imagine
happen if he's still the head coach.
I have to imagine it wasn't supposed to come out and just someone leaked it. And, now it's out there. And I don't know why they're waiting. Maybe just because it was a short week, they didn't want to give their interim head coach a short week to come in for his first game,
Well,
Actually, that's what I'm guessing. But
the
yeah.
Bears have never hired or never fired a coach mid-season.
Yep. Never.
So I think maybe they're just like following tradition or whatever. But I mean, let's all agree he needs to GTFO.
Yeah. I mean, and it makes sense to have your interim head coach come in after a Thursday night game because then it's like basically that like mini bye week, so they have a little bit more time.
Yeah.
It's just probably a mistake that it came out that it was going to happen.
It's still just so messy.
It is. It's a mess.
Happy Thanksgiving, Nagy. Be thankful that you're on the unemployment line. I don't know. It's so bad.
Make sure the turkey's not too big, you buy, because you might need to be eaten for the next year. Your coaching future is done. I mean, he could go back to the Chiefs, right? If Eric Bieniemy ends up, maybe taking over. Maybe Eric Bieniemy actually, gets hired by the Bears, and the Chiefs need a head coach. I mean, sitting there and going through it, like I couldn't find any, genuine head coaching candidates that I actually like Byron Leftwich, maybe, but I mean, I don't think he's ready. I know that he probably will be a head coach going into 2022, but I don't think that he's ready, especially to have such a young offense and, having to figure it out from there. He's going to have to bring in somebody like a Wade Phillips type defensive coordinator to, have the experience and the head coaching experience to be able to show him the lines. But I mean, I couldn't think of anybody that I was like, damn, he needs to be the head coach of the Bears, and I'll be stoked on that. You guys have anybody off the top of your head?
Yeah, Kellen Moore or Joe Brady.
That's exactly what I was going to say with Kellen Moore. In my head.
Yeah, I like Kellen Moore a lot.
I don't think that Joe Brady would be able to do that because of the fact that the Carolina Panthers, I don't think that he's going to be a candidate. Let me rephrase that. I don't think he's going to be a candidate because he hasn't been able to get the Carolina Panthers offense off the ground outside of the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah, but they had Darnold. They had Darnold.
And I think he's pretty well thought of in the NFL.
Yeah. I think Brady and Burrow were the ones who exposed Orgeron, aside from Orgeron's, Urban Meyer tendencies with young girls. But it's after they both left, LSU kind of went to shit. And that program hasn't been the same, and that's why he's resigning. And I don't know. I think he does have a very pro style approach. And if he would have had a better quarterback going into the season, I would have been a lot more excited to see what he could do at an actual pro level.
All right. So let's go ahead and let's kick this show off. Wyatt, you ready?
I'm absolutely ready.
Britt, you ready?
Let's go.
Let's do this.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Chase Vernon.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into another episode of Fantasy Intervention. We have a lot of news to cover with the playoffs coming, with the push hitting us right in the face. I mean, injuries are still happening, players coming back from injuries. I mean, we have concerns surrounding, possibly A.J. Dillon with Aaron Jones coming back, or Aaron Jones with A.J. Dillon actually producing. We have guys like Hilliard being discussed, which we have plenty to add about him. But you know what? I could not do this on my own. I couldn't do this on my own, number one, because I don't have time to do the show sheet. So the wonderful @Britt_Flynn over there, Britt has to actually take care of the majority of the show sheet, make it look super pretty, which I just come in to destroy anyways. But we couldn't do it on our own. We couldn't do it on our own without Wyatt, because Wyatt over there is our special guest. What's going on, Wyatt? He's our special guest tonight, and he's been brought in to add his knowledge, his insight, and his football acumen to the discussion. So real quick, Britt, how are you doing tonight?
I'm so good.
Are you?
I've been baking all day. Everything smells delicious in here.
You're baking?
Yeah.
What are you making?
I made a pecan pie, an apple pie, and then some cornbread for the dressing so far today. It's prep season.
Oh, man. Do you have big Thanksgiving stuff? Like big Thanksgiving dinners, like bunch of people?
Basically it's just me and my husband. My parents are still scared of COVID and my sister hates me. So, it's just going to be us, but we love to be fat and watch football all day. So I tend to go all out on Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. Love that. Love that 100%. And that's something I love to do while watching some football. And Wyatt, what's going on, man? Where can we find you? What you got going on? You doing anything crazy for Thanksgiving? I see you got the Christmas tree in the background already. What's up?
Yep.
Talk to me, guys.
Yeah, find me, YP_FF on Twitter. Thanksgiving, I actually already had Thanksgiving with my wife's family last Saturday. We did a little Southern-style Thanksgiving. I smoked a turkey breast, a few of them actually. Made smoked turkey gravy. We had greens, ham. some fresh made biscuits. Like it was fantastic. So on actual Thanksgiving, we're going to keep it low key. Me and my wife, I'm just going to make her some dinner.
Dude, very nice. That actually sounds phenomenal. Like to an extent, like I love the family stuff too, like, you know, with a little bit of it. But when you get to do it on a Saturday and relax,
Yeah.
and then on Thursday, you still get to do it like for a second time, but on a smaller scale, that just sounds excellent. I'm down for that.
Yeah, and I love Thanksgiving. As a former chef, I love to eat, love to cook. So Thanksgiving is my jam.
Dude, I'm stoked about that because, you know, when you came on the show, pre-show, right? We're sitting there, we're talking, and I was like, hey, you know, I got some of this Elijah Craig, you know, rye, hashtag not a sponsor, you know, and I was sitting there, I was like, this is my first time I get to try it. And you're like, no way, I'm actually drinking this right now. I'm a bartender who loves to cook. You know, you're a cook, you know, previous chef who loves to sample some great whiskey. So we got a good combination on the show for you guys tonight. I'm excited for this episode. So let's go ahead and kick this show off. And let's talk a little bit about some of these waivers and the no shit ads that you should have. And the first one that Britt came up with is one that I was actually fading. I was fading because I didn't know how he'd work into the offense. I thought that they might be running a little bit more often. And honestly, I didn't know that they would get a ton of touchdowns. I thought it'd be a lower scoring game. Turns out the game was somewhat higher scoring. I think it was 48 or 51 points total. Either way, we're talking about the Washington and the Carolina game. So Britt, who is your first waiver wire no shit you should already have him on your roster pickup?
Oh, it's Cam Newton. I'm actually surprised that he's still only 40.9% rostered. Mike and I kind of harped on this last week. And I think the apprehension is that Cam's not a big passer. He's not going to get you a lot of pass yards, right? But he calls his own number when they're within the 20s. I mean, he can run, he can dump it off to Christian McCaffrey, and he proved that last week. He had 2 passing touchdowns. He had a big rushing touchdown. I mean, he looked like vintage Cam out there. And his schedule upcoming is really good. I mean, he faces Miami this week. Then they have a bye. So obviously you need to check in that. But then they do Atlanta. And then you have Buffalo in week 15. But if you're looking to like make a push into the playoffs, if you're right on that bubble, and Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes are both off this week. So I think Cam's a very, very viable streaming option, if not a couple weeks starter for you.
Yeah, I mean, they've allowed certain running quarterbacks to do some work against them. I mean, they've allowed, 3 rushing quarterbacks rushing touchdowns to the quarterback position. Patrick Mahomes took them for 61 yards. I mean, I think that he is an option moving forward. However, I would do it with slight hesitation. I'm not saying that he's not a no-shit pickup because he should probably be rostered after last week's performance, after, you know, what we see and his upcoming schedule. But Wyatt, like, are you on board with this? Are you like, yeah, I want him on my roster if I'm streaming quarterbacks?
Yeah, I was a big fan of Cam Newton going there. I thought he was a streaming quarterback right off the bat as soon as he signed in Carolina. Last year, he was the QB 16, despite how bad he was as a passer because of how much he can do as a rusher, and with no talent around him, literally nothing, right, in New England last year. Now he comes to the Panthers with DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey. Like, it's easy for him with the offense. The way they designed it up, they just have to get it in the playmaker's hands. He doesn't have to do anything special, right? He just needs to throw it to the guys who make the plays and run it when it's open for him. We've seen the Panthers call QB draws with Sam Darnold this year. So, like, we know that's already part of their playbook, and it's worked with Darnold. Darnold had 5 rushing touchdowns to start the year. Like, what can Cam do in that offense, right? So
he was leading the league in rushing for a certain amount of time. And you brought up the Cam Newton was quarterback 16 back in 2020. That was in I think 14 games, I believe, or 13 games. And some of the games he got benched in towards the second half. So, I mean, that wasn't even a full season we're talking about. So I can understand that. I don't hate Cam Newton. I think he should probably be on a team. But I would hesitate and try to find some other waiver wire options. Jamal, I see you have a question in the chat. Real quick, we'll head back to that. But I want to go to this running back position because, I mean, the running back position is not obvious. Like, it's a very difficult spot that we're in with the running back. We really don't know which guys are actual locks because we're getting down to the nitty gritty. And I was talking to Mike Valverde, who does our waiver wire articles. And he's like, dude, I am struggling to find players that I actually want to pick up and start. He's like, the opportunities are there, but the players that are taking these spots are just terrible players. Like, we haven't seen a season like this. I mean, the COVID season to an extent, and then 2011 was absolutely brutal, the year of the lockout where the players didn't really get to practice. Injuries took over, and I believe it was up 300% or 350% from the previous year. But, I mean, when it comes to one position getting affected, I mean, we've had Will Fuller and DJ Chark and, some other injuries. We'll bring in DeAndre Hopkins as well. But the wide receiver position is widely kind of healthy. And the players who have been able to step up, in the wide receiver position have been pretty good players overall. So we've actually had good options throughout the year, wide receiver. Running back, oh my God, all the best running backs are teaming up on the same team, right? So we have Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt obviously got hurt, but guess what? You still have Nick Chubb. And when he didn't, it was still a good option as the third option with Dearness Johnson, who's not a terrible running back. When we sit there, we look at some of these other teams like, Michael Carter getting injured. I'll allude to that and let you kick this off, Britt. Are you willing to pick up Ty Johnson as a no-shit pickup? Is he somebody that you're locking in and going to be able to not only pick up, but also start?
I think that you almost have to, because there's so much parity in the league this season. We have so many 6 and 5 teams, 5 and 6, 5 and 5 if you've had a bye already. And so many of these teams, it's not like the ground and pound it down your throat where you have just one workhorse running back. Everybody is kind of switched to a running back by committee. And when one of those running backs goes down, you've got to go with the next man up. And that feels really messy for fantasy. But why I think that Ty Johnson is a no shit pickup is because he has pass catching upside. Last week, all 3 running backs literally took an equal snap share, completely equal down the board. But we got the news yesterday that Michael Carter sidelined with an ankle injury, and Johnson has to get more work, right? I mean, he already has a big passing role. Dontrell Hilliard, who was the pass-catching sub for Jeremy Mcnichols when he was out with the concussion, put up 19.2 fantasy points. So if, and this is a big if because the Jets are still a huge question mark with Robert Saleh at head coach and with Zach Wilson coming back because Joe Flacco and Mike White are both on COVID. So we have to see what Zach Wilson's actually going to do, if he's going to check it down. But with all the question marks and just the thinness on the waiver wire, I mean, you have to have Johnson as one of your top pickups this week.
Yeah, and real quick, by the way, before I go to you, Wyatt, with this, if you're all on Twitter, because I do recognize that there's about 10 people on Twitter right now that are watching. However, when you go to comment on Twitter, we can't see those comments. We can see them from Facebook, and we can see them from YouTube. So if you want to go check out Fantasy Football Discussion, where we are live right now, we're on Fantasy Football Discussion. It's facebook.com/EFFDEE, as in EFFDEE. So it's an FFD. You guys can go check it out on there, or you guys can go to youtube.com/fantasy intervention. Once again, that's youtube.com/fantasy intervention. And we will actually answer your questions as they pop up, especially the ones pertaining to the waiver wire. So get those questions in on Facebook, get those questions in on YouTube. We can see them. Unfortunately, Twitter, we cannot. So Wyatt, back to you on the running back position with Ty Johnson. Are you somebody that's locked in on Ty Johnson? Do you think that you can pick him up, possibly start them this week? You can pick him up, maybe wait. Michael Carter is looking to be out for 2 or 3 weeks. So where are you at with Ty Johnson?
I think without a doubt, he's someone that you need to be picking up. You definitely want to have him on your roster. I am not completely sold on starting him yet because of the QB situation. Because it's going to be Zach Wilson. We've seen Zach Wilson be a quarterback who doesn't want to check it down. And that's really where Ty Johnson's made his bread and butter. Despite Tevin Coleman being terrible, and I have no idea why he's on a roster apart from him knowing the offense there, I'm afraid he's going to take too much of the load, that it could hurt Ty Johnson if he's not getting enough receptions. So if I could help it, I don't want to start him this week. If you don't really have a good option otherwise, roll with it. He's got a great opportunity in front of him, so he could be fine. It's just I'm a little bit worried that he won't see enough in the passing game, and that could help keep him down.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like Britt brought up it, the Texans, are absolutely horrendous up against the running back. They're actually pretty good at containing pass catching running backs, but are not. If you guys want to check that out, you can go to fantasyintervention.com/DOCE. Check out the dose score. They might allow a good amount of receptions, but they actually contain the running backs in most games so far this season. They're number 2 ranked. But yeah, I think that Ty Johnson, if you're in a pinch, right? Like you have maybe Michael Carter was your starter. I think that you can run out Ty Johnson in this situation because he's at least going to get the yardage on the ground and he should see the receptions in the air. So I'm okay with putting in a bid for Ty Johnson if he's out there. I know a lot of leagues don't have him out there, although in ESPN ones, you're looking at 18.8%, baby. Go get him.
That's wild.
All right. As for Latavius Murray, he's rostered in 28.3% of the ESPN leagues. And for me, I'm still a believer that Freeman, they're going to use some sort of committee approach. But Britt, you're all over Latavius Murray on this one. What are you thinking with this?
Well, so when I wrote these running backs, I literally said running backs are really gross this week. So I don't know if there are any actual just no shit pickups, but there are pickups who shouldn't lose your matchups where other running backs could just be like the fool's gold, like roster bomb, things like that. I think
the roster
bombs. After cutting Le'Veon Bell, and I wrote in some article that Tyson Williams has literally leased Harbaugh's doghouse, that it's just Freeman and Latavius Murray. He hasn't really looked great this season, but I mean, who else is out there? What are you going to do if you actually need a running back? He should still give you 10 to 12 touches per game. And he's facing Cleveland this week, who, despite their great pass rush and Myles Garrett, they're still allowing the 5th most fantasy points per game to the running back position in the past 4 weeks. I think a lot of that has to do with the absence of Jadeveon Clowney, but I mean, ride the wave, baby. You can do worse with how the waivers look and how gross they are.
Wyatt, are you on Latavius Murray? Are you thinking that he could be a must grab? Like, do you have a waiver wire pickup on him right now?
I don't love Latavius Murray. Even when he was the guy for Baltimore and he was scoring touchdowns, he wasn't doing that well. If you love like 6 to 9 points, Latavius Murray is your guy. But the way they've been using their running backs, none of them are that great. And unfortunately, Devontae Freeman has looked the best out of all of them, and he's actually getting a little bit of receiving work. Latavius Murray got minimal receiving work. And yes, the Browns have been worse against running backs as of late, but they did play in that time frame Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift. Some running backs a little bit better than Latavius Murray, though I'll give credit to Baltimore's offense that they seem to just make running lanes for every running back. I think Latavius Murray has a great chance to score. I'm just afraid he scores and he gets you 8 points. And I mean, if that's all you need for your lineup this week, I mean, times are tough. I realize that. And some deep leagues, that might be all you need. Go for it. It's just, Latavius Murray isn't, getting me excited for some days.
No, it was so hard to write.
It's dirty this week.
Yeah, it was so hard to even figure out a second. I was like even really hesitant to even write Ty Johnson because I was like, ooh, that's gross. And then I was like, well, I have to have more than one. Okay, that's gross. And that's why I wrote that little preface on the show sheet. It's not nice out there. It's
Baltimore, and Devontae Freeman is no spring chicken either. Anything could happen to him at any point. He could have a bad day, and all of a sudden it's Latavius Murray show. So, there are definitely teams that could use Latavius Murray.
Well, and I just think also, this is the last thing I'm going to throw in. Lamar Jackson still hasn't returned to practice. He's still sick. And Jackson is, arguably the RB1 in that offense.
Yeah.
So if he's not healthy 100%, you kind of wonder how much they're going to give these other two running backs other than those designed run plays and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see. Will I, for lack of a better word, shit my pants if I have to start Latavius Murray? Yes, probably.
Yeah.
But it's week 12, baby. We got to go with what we have.
For lack of a better word. So I am sitting there and I'm looking at Latavius Murray as a guy who I actually will pick up if I'm in a pinch, right? If I'm in a pinch, like let's just say I have AJ Dillon right now, or I don't know, give me another backup running back whose starter is coming back soon.
Do we even know? Because it's so messy out there.
Yeah, I say if you were starting Mark Ingram, and maybe now Kamara is coming back in.
Tony
Jones this week. Okay, well, either way, we're talking about Mark Ingram's the perfect example, right? Where Alvin Kamara could be coming back here within the stretch. We have on the schedule the Cleveland Browns, which we talked about once. But it's not only once, it's twice, right? We have the Green Bay Packers, who aren't great up against the run. The Cincinnati Bengals, who are decent but not great. And then the Rams, who allow running backs to get yardage because they just don't want to allow deep passes to go against them because they know their offense is dynamic enough to be able to get a big lead. So they just let running backs waste time. And essentially it ends up helping out their defense as a whole. So, I mean, looking at that, I actually like Latavius Murray as a handcuff type play. If you have Devonta Freeman and you have a starting running back like a Mark Ingram who you're rolling out there, and you might need somebody in the future, I'm okay with Latavius Murray. I think he's cool. I think he's an all right pickup. I'm not hating on it, and I think that he's somebody that could actually be a league winner in the playoffs if it gets to the point where Devonta Freeman gets hurt, because Devonta Freeman hasn't really played a full season in how many years now? So I'm okay. I'm okay with Latavius Murray on this one, although Devonta Freeman looks way better than he does. All right, let's go ahead and answer this question real quick from Jamal. Mr. Brooklyn Lands, thank you for being patient if you're still on the show with us. What's up, y'all? I hope y'all are doing well today. I hope you're doing well too, Jamal. Should I drop the Panthers defense for the Eagles defense, who's facing the sorry-ass Giants this week? I also have the Rams and Cardinals defense. So my first question for you, Jamal, is why the hell are you rostering 3 defenses, my friend? Like, why is that happening? Because, I mean, that means that you're wasting spots on guys like league winners like Latavius Murray, who we just talked about. I mean, come on. But, no, I understand that defenses can be super appealing to pick up because they're top 10 ranked. They're top 5 ranked. But guess what? You can only play one at a time. And defenses typically are very unreliable if you don't have a defense in the top 3, top 5. And although the Cardinals defense can be that ever since J.J. Watt left and Kyler Murray hasn't been playing, they haven't looked excellent. They're not racking up a bunch of stats. As for the Rams, they weren't even top 15, I don't believe, until late, if they are right now. So my first piece of advice to you would be to drop both of these defenses, or try and trade them off so you can actually roster people who could have an impact on your team later on in the season, not who you have to alternate through. Obviously, pending how deep your rosters are. Second point for you is don't drop the Panthers defense, because I think that they are the most dominant defense in the league this year when it comes to all facets of the game. I picked Washington as the most underrated defense this year. I picked the Panthers as the most underrated defense this year, and so far they've performed. I think that the Panthers defense, if there was any defense that I would keep on my bench, it would be the Panthers. But, I mean, I don't see a point in benching them this upcoming week for the Eagles, who – I mean, we're seeing a change in offensive coordinator. Maybe Kitchens has something up his sleeve. Maybe he has something in the kitchen sink waiting for him. He's somebody who, he does have a propensity to have big plays as an offensive coordinator. I wouldn't go for the Eagles defense personally. Do you all have a different take on that?
No, Freddie Kitchens was, honestly, when you think about when he took over for Hugh Jackson as the interim head coach, and then they all credited him for making Baker relevant, right? Like, Kitchens was the one who made Baker good. And then as soon as he actually got that head coaching role, they shit the bed. And it was terrible. So I think, everybody wants to ride that shiny new thing. Like, yeah, they're switching, they're discombobulated, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. But I think that Kitchens is actually decent as an offensive coordinator. He just sucks as a head coach. And, the Eagles were facing Trevor Siemian, who, despite what everybody thinks, they were without Kamara. They had Trevor Siemian. That offense was a joke. Don't read into stat lines, read into play calling, read into season-long stats. And I think the Panthers is the better play going forward this week.
Yeah, I agree completely. I can understand the allure of wanting to pick up the defense playing against Daniel Jones, who loves to turn the ball over. I also wouldn't give any credit to Freddie Kitchens, who is really just a fraud. He can't take any credit for what Baker did as a rookie. I was actually just ranting about this today in a DM chat on Twitter, because he got that credit, but it came out afterwards that he basically used Todd Haley's playbook in conjunction with his offensive coaches to come up with game plans. All he did was call the plays on Sundays. So I wouldn't give him anything. But with that said, I'm definitely sticking with the Panthers against the Dolphins. Tua has been prone to making at least one big mistake every game. The Panthers pass rush is very real. And the week after this, they get the Falcons. And I definitely want the Panthers against the Falcons.
Yeah. Oh, man. Matt Ryan is turnover prone. I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm in the same boat as you guys. The Panthers defense is somebody that I'm definitely rolling out. I know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers made Daniel Jones and the Giants look bad, but they actually didn't even record a sack until Daniel Jones was out of the game. Or wait, no, that was the other way around. It was Tom Brady that didn't get sacked.
They just
Never mind.
But they still just did so bad.
Yeah.
And honestly,
it's a bad offensive line, but
speaking about the Falcons, Kyle Pitts deserves so much better.
He is.
I hate that.
He saw double coverage on
Pour one out for
31% of the routes run in this past game. He saw double coverage on 31% of the routes run. That's absolutely nuts.
He did the week before too. Like everybody's just shutting him down because the Falcons don't have. I mean, Matt Ryan's not a deep threat. You've got Gage and Zacchaeus, who I think we're going to talk about. Spoiler alert in the avoids, but it's just it's so unfortunate for Kyle Pitts. Like somebody, please go do something. Help him out, man.
All right. What's up, Hollywood Titan in the chat, man? And Jamal, you are more than welcome. David, I see your question, man. We're going to get to it. We're going to hop on wide receivers, and then we have tight ends after that. So let's hop on to this question from David once we actually get into the tight end section of the No Shit Starts. As for the wide receivers, Elijah Moore is somebody that I think is absolutely somebody that could help you bring home one of these suckers. That's right. This is the championship title belt right here. This thing is heavy. Actually, A1 Sweet, he's the head of fantasy football discussion, right? He's the guy who created fantasy football discussion. Well, him and his buddy, and he took it over. And he's the reason why fantasy football discussion is successful. He just got a championship belt with an engraved thing on his, which I'm stoked for him. He's having it for his home league, the Rock Champion. So I'm stoked for A1, but you can actually get one of these belts. And if you go to trophysmack.com, and you use promo code CIRCLE, when you go to checkout, if you put the ring in your basket, right, and you put a trophy or a belt in your basket as well, when you go to checkout, you actually get that $60 ring for free. So that's trophysmack.com. Use promo code CIRCLE. You got to throw the belt or a trophy, either one in there. And when you do that, you got to throw a ring in there. Use the promo code CIRCLE at checkout, and you'll get a $60 championship ring for free. Go check it out, trophysmack.com. And Elijah Moore is going to get you there. Britt, why is that?
Oh, dude, Elijah Moore. Now, I did write this before we found out that Zach Wilson was coming back. But like I said earlier, I really think that Saleh and Wilson are going to realize that Elijah Moore is the answer. It's hard to roster any member of this defense, but Moore has produced over the past few weeks. Since week 8, he's averaged 21.6 fantasy points per game, and that's with Mike White and Joe Flacco. I mean, it's absolutely insane. The upcoming schedule is also super favorable. They play at Houston next week, and Houston's allowing the second most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers over the past 4 weeks. You know, when it gets this far in the season, I'm all about like recent stats and not season-long stats because things change. And I mean, when you allow Westbrook-Ikini to burn you for over 100 yards, like it's bad. Like, please tell me Terrence Marshall is like 143rd worst in separation in the league, 143rd worst. I mean, mid-100 basis on like target separation, receptions allowed, and yards allowed. And I think that, Desmond King is going to work with Corey Davis. And then it's Elijah Moore season. They've got to work him in. I am terrified that Zach Wilson's gonna just lay an egg, not to make a Thanksgiving pun, but I mean, you've got to go with the talent here, right?
So I actually think that the Elijah Moore's going to crush it, and for some of the reasons you've explained. But the biggest one is Houston is allowing a 9% explosive pass play rate thus far in the season, which is passes that go over 20 yards or more. teams haven't had to use passes that go 20 yards or more up against Houston, and yet they're 19th. They are 19th in explosive pass play rate allowed. I mean, like, what other one? Like, what else could you ask for? It's literally the perfect opportunity for Elijah Moore to just go off this week. I like Zach Wilson in this situation. Zach Wilson actually had the highest completion percentage of passes or 30 or more yards down the field in college. Now, obviously, a little bit easier competition, but sitting on the bench, right? After, you come and you start, right? You get used to the NFL game speed, and then you sit on the bench and you watch other players at your position be successful. You learn from those players. You're like, oh, I could have done that. I could have done that. Well, he just watched Joe Flacco, do it better than him. He watched Mike White check it down better than him. I think that he can use both those to advance his, his future outlook. And I think that he's absolutely going to crush moving forward. I think that Zach Wilson is a great spot in his career by getting hurt early on in his rookie season. Because if anybody needed to sit for a few games and be like, all right, you cannot do all this stuff that you're doing, it was Zach Wilson. It was Zach Wilson. So Elijah Moore for me is a must start up against Houston. He's not only a waiver wire pickup, he's a must start. He's like, when everybody was talking about Michael Pittman, and he's like, oh, is he worth the waiver wire pickup? Michael Pittman should have already been on your rosters, people, and he should have already been starting. And now he's a must start, although he let you down last week. He's a must start from week to week. And he didn't let you down because he was bad. He let you down because Jonathan Taylor stole the show.
Destroyed the world.
Yeah. So Elijah Moore this week is a must start up against Houston. Wyatt, do you have anything else to add, or do you want to hop on to this next player that we're about to talk about?
No, you guys killed it. I agree completely.
All right, Cedric Wilson. Oh, go ahead.
I just have to say one more thing about Zach Wilson. I really hope that he's cut off his mom's social media post and that he's not listening to her nonsense get in his head like after Thanksgiving going into Sunday.
He probably blocked her in week 1. Stop it.
I mean, he has to. Like, it's just something that I'm worried about. I worry about like weird random things.
Zach Wilson's mom, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on her name right now, but I don't feel the same way. I love your social media content. If you ever want to hit me up, just get me on Twitter at @FF_intervention.
Oh.
All right, Cedric Wilson is up next.
I'll drink to that.
When did this turn into Tinder?
I'm just saying, you can find me on Twitter. Or at Fantasy Football Discussion. All right, Cedric Wilson is up, and he's rostered 1.6%.
Oh my God, Freudian slip.
No, I still said 6. I just didn't say the point part right. Okay. Anyways, okay. So we have he's rostered 1.6% of ESPN leagues. He's in a situation now with Amari Cooper isn't doing great. He's most likely going to miss Thursday. They're saying that CeeDee Lamb is actually on track to play Thursday, which I think is a little bit surprising. I don't know how. Like, he would have to hit every point absolutely perfect. And I think CeeDee Lamb is pushing this issue. Most veteran players wouldn't do it. However, he's a second-year guy who knows that he's at the top of the ranks for the wide receivers in his second year, and he wants to make sure that he stamps his name on this 2021 season. With that being said, he didn't play nearly as many slot snaps this past week as he has in the past, as he has prior to week 10, or prior to week 11, I should say. Cedric Wilson took that over. So Cedric Wilson is the slot receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. Michael Gallup last week crushed it, did pretty well at least. Then you have CeeDee Lamb. Is Cedric Wilson, with these passing options still available, Dalton Schultz as well, is Cedric Wilson a must pick up for you? Britt, why is it on that list for you?
Yeah, I think in regards to Lamb not playing as many slot snaps, he was going to play the slot before we got the news that Amari Cooper was out with COVID. And then they shifted Lamb back to the outside, which put Cedric Wilson in there. They had so many drops. They were just discombobulated. Like, the news of Amari Cooper going out a day or two before they played the Chiefs completely ruined their entire game plan. And they looked like it, right? I think that the whole talk about CeeDee Lamb potentially coming back is the whole coach speak thing, kind of like they did against Minnesota in week 8. They said that they knew that Dak wasn't going to play, but they just said that he might to throw off the defenses. I don't think Lamb's going to play. I think it's going to be Wilson. I think it's going to be Noah Brown. I think we'll get a little bit of Malik Turner in there. And
who the hell is Malik Turner?
Maybe you should look at depth charts.
Oh,
No, I'm kidding.
Dude,
no, but
he's too worried about
Zach
Wilson's
He had 2 touchdowns like 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago he got it, but
I was so confused when I saw him catching touchdowns. I'm like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah,
wasn't it supposed to be like Semi something?
Semi Fehoko from either Stanford or USC. He's a California guy, but he's a special teams guy. Yeah, you should just wait until Devy season and draft season comes out.
Let's go.
But I really don't think that Lamb is going to play. I think it's going to be Cedric Wilson alternating in the slot. I think Dalton Schultz, I think they're going to play. I honestly want to say 12 personnel, but I don't think they have any good tight ends to go. I think that it'll be like 2 running back sets where Zeke is a pass blocker and Wilson and Gallup run out deep, and then Schultz gets the short routes. But I mean, the target share is there, and the Raiders, I mean, you attack them by the run, but you're going to have to go up at some point to defer to that. So I think he's a mid-range flex play this week. And especially if you have Cooper or Lamb in your lineup and you're trying to make a playoff push, because the rest of the receivers out there are booty.
Yeah, it's not pretty. I talked about how we have had valid options to pick up on the waivers this week. And, there is one player, I don't even know if we cover him in the show sheet, that I will end up bringing up as, no, we don't. I was going to mention now, it's not on Peoples Jones. Jarvis Landry did not look normal this past week. It was absolutely brutal. Like, I think he was nicked up. What was his knee or something along those lines? He just doesn't look right. This offense has to find some sort of identity in the passing game. So I think that Donovan Peoples-Jones is another must pick up type player. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, it's very barren this week on the waiver wire pickups for wide receivers. If you guys are watching, you guys are thinking, oh, this player, don't worry. We have plenty of players to trash here coming up. And normally we don't spend this much time on guaranteed waiver wire pickups, but there's so much good information coming in as to why you want to pick these players up. So let's go ahead and hop on to tight ends. And real quick, I want to start out with David Goodman, right? David Goodman comes in and says, Dan Arnold is still available. Drop Conklin for him. Conklin has a kind of rough matchup this week. Dan Arnold last week, what did he see? Like 5 targets, something, didn't have a single reception.
Yeah, nothing.
Oh, he didn't even see a target. Yeah, I know that he had 0 receptions. Yeah. I thought it was like a Mike Gesicki week.
Complete disappointment.
No, yeah, but Agnew's out now, and like, can you trust Urban Meyer to like put Chenault in that slot role, because he's put Chenault to the outside role, and that's not where he feels comfortable in, especially like after losing ETN. Sorry to like Bogart this entire conversation, but I'm like, Arnold has to do something this week. Like, poke him with a stick. You have to do something.
I mean, he's been good outside of every other game this season. I think he's scored double-digit fantasy points in like 5 of the 6 matchups that he's been with the Jaguars.
And he's led the targets.
I think you have to forget about this last week. Like, that was the aberration. Everything else that's happened before this is what's real. This was the outlier week.
But, I mean, Conklin's been great. So, do you drop Conklin?
It depends. Is it a PPR? Can you qualify if you're still listening? Because that's going to be the main thing. Because Arnold gets more targets. I think Conklin has more end zone upside. So that would be the kicker for me.
Yeah, let's treat it like it's non-PPR and PPR. I mean, typically most leagues we deal with on Twitter sphere is PPR. Oh, did he answer?
Yep, it is PPR.
Yeah, Arnold.
Okay, cool.
In that case.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with Arnold in a PPR.
Sounds good. I mean, for me, I think that you have to have touchdowns in order to start a tight end. Like, you have to at least have a possibility of a touchdown. In both these matchups, I think they're about 50-50, like, when it comes to which one has a greater percentage. So, like you guys brought up, I'm going to go with the PPR upside and assume that they're both going to score a touchdown, although you should never assume that they both will. But they both have a possibility of doing so. So, I'll take the PPR upside of Dan Arnold as well. I'd rather see, David, since you're in the chat, I want to know, like, who your bottom 3 options on your roster that you might be able to drop as well. And we'll see if we would rather drop one of those guys and maybe roster both as we move forward, because there's some very advantageous matchups for the Vikings at the tight end position that you would want to have Conklin for. All right, so let's hop into the tight ends real quick. I don't want to spend too much time on this because we honestly have,
Yeah, we're
we've
running behind.
we're running way behind on our show. But you have Logan Thomas, and Logan Thomas has been on our list for like 3 straight weeks now as a guy that we should pick up. Now he hasn't gotten in, to the lineup, and that's been a big disappointment. But I mean, is there anything that we need to discuss as to why Logan Thomas should be picked up that we have not discussed in the past?
I mean, he's basically, after Ricky Seals-Jones went out, he's the dude. I mean, he is the dude in Washington.
He was the dude before Ricky Seals-Jones.
Well, I mean, he was, but there's no
He hasn't been back.
there's no depth. And then his floor is super safe, and his upcoming schedule is against Seattle, at the Raiders. He gets Dallas twice, and Philly, who you play your tight ends against Philly. Like, if you're trying to get points down the stretch, especially in a really messy tight end position, scoop him up, be sneaky squirrel, do it.
How dare you? How dare you attack Sammy Reyes and say there's no depth behind him and John Bates? Sammy Reyes is a national treasure that the NFL should hold dear to their heart. Sammy Reyes, I know that he's not a college player, so you probably haven't been paying that much attention to him. But Sammy Reyes is a gem. All right, I'm just kidding. No, they have no depth. All right, let's see. No, David Goodman did not get back to us yet on his backup players. So let's go ahead and hop into the tight ends. And then Jamal, I see you have a question about tight ends following that. A bunch of other questions are lining up as well, actually. So, oh, wait, we just handled that one. Never mind. Let's go ahead and hop on to Jamal's question. I apologize. So someone dropped Noah Fant in one of his leagues. Should he pick him up? He already has Dawson Knox. And this is very similar to the question I feel like we just got with Dan Arnold and Conklin, where I feel like these are both players where you could actually flex both of them, in certain positions. So I don't hate holding on to both of these guys. Noah Fant is in a tough spot. He always has been, and he's almost dependent on big plays, and they're freakish big plays. Like, do you guys remember in his rookie season when he played the Browns and he bounced off of like, oh yeah, you're a Browns fan, my bad. He bounced off of 3 guys, broke tackles, ran for like 75 yards. I did a study, and he had 38% of his receiving yards come on 3 plays in his rookie year. That's the epitome of Noah Fant. Or it might have been 29 and then 38% on 5 of his plays. But either way, I mean, it's something where Noah Fant is a big play type guy, and I like that, and I like it for the matchups. I don't want to drop Dawson Knox, but I want to pick up Noah Fant. So once again, very similar to the David Goodman question, I would look for another option on the back end of your roster. So Jamal, if you want to give us a couple, drop one of those 3 defenses you're rostering. Damn it!
Well,
right there.
And Noah Fant has, aside from that COVID game in Week 9, he's been first or second on the team in targets. I mean, if you're in a PPR league, you can't go wrong, even if it is. I think in this late in the season, the waivers are so messy and you don't really want to rely on the big plays. If you have a tight end who's a consistent target monster, I mean, put him in your flex. Go for it.
Andy gets the Chargers this week, who have tied for the most touchdowns given to tight ends this year. So something to think about.
All right, so let's hop on to these no shit targets, or these no shit players. Britt, do you want to bring us in? Because I'm going to type something real quick in the private chat. So you want to bring us in on what these no shit players are?
Well,
the avoid players. I'm sorry.
So we're doing the avoid quarterbacks. So first off, we have Mack Jones. He's rostered in 22.4% of ESPN leagues. The Patriots are on top of the AFC East, and it's due in no small part to him, right? Like, he's been a very good rookie. He's probably arguably the best rookie quarterback of this class. And he's been really efficient against some pretty bad defenses, but I just don't think his volume is there. I mean, the past 4 weeks, he's only averaged 190 yards per game. I think he's so much more of a game manager than he is somebody who's going to win a fantasy championship for you. So what do you guys think about Mack Jones?
Yeah, so
go ahead. Okay. I love Mack Jones actually as a player, actually. He's exactly what we thought he was going to be, but that's actually pretty good, especially when you compare him to the rookie QBs. But even that is just not that great. like everything has to go perfectly for him to be a streamable quarterback. So in that case, it's just not someone that I really care about rostering unless I'm in a real big pinch or in a super flex league.
Yeah, Mack Jones for me is somebody that, he's going to give you the minimum in most weeks. I mean, his best week was what, like 22, 25 points, something along those lines. He's going to give you the minimum, and people are like, oh, he's breaking out. He's going to do great. He's going to do great. Dude, we're getting to the winter season, right? You know what New England likes to do in the winter time? Because it gets cold as hell up there. They're playing the Jets, right? They're playing Buffalo. They're playing northern teams in most cases, and I think they're playing a lot of colder games towards the tail end of the season. I got to look back at the roster, but either way, I'm not picking up Mack Jones. I'm not streaming Mack Jones. I'm not hoping that he's going to go off from week to week, and I'm definitely not wasting fab on him or my waiver wire position. Now, if it comes to it, right, and we come Wednesday morning, right, and he's sitting there like a present on the Christmas tree, and I'm in a shit situation, like I don't know, Baker Mayfield as my quarterback, sure, I'll look into picking up Mack Jones, but I'm not going to waste fab on him. Like, come on. Like, you got better sense than that to just go waste fab on a quarterback who has a very similar outcome to about 15 other quarterbacks that are on the waivers as well. I mean, he's not going to drive it home for you, and he's not going to bring a fantasy championship, at least this week. Maybe in the future, but not this week. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the running back position for the guys that we... Oh, wait. Oh, we forgot one. Oh, we forgot one. We got one on here that I might not agree with, but we're going to go to you, Britt, with Tyrod Taylor's rostered in 5% of ESPN leagues.
Yeah, this one was it was kind of a contentious one for me. I'm like, do I put him in the no shits? Do I put him in the avoids? But I think we have to put him in the avoids. I think on paper, the matchup looks really good against the Jets. If you look at the analytics, if you look at whatever, but Taylor's value is really in his rushing ability, and the Jets have only allowed 29 rushing yards per game to opposing quarterbacks. They allow a ton of yards to opposing running backs, but not the quarterbacks. Against last week's game in Tennessee, he was 14 of 24 for 107 yards. I mean, his stat line was completely elevated by the fact that he ran those 2 touchdowns in, and I'm not sure that he's going to get that in kind of a shootout matchup against the Jets. I think both defenses are pretty horrendous. I think they're both going to have to throw, and I don't think he's going to be able to rely on his rushing upside. It feels icky. If you don't have anybody else out there, I guess go for it, but I do not feel good about starting him this week.
Wyatt, how do you feel about Tyrod Taylor?
I think it depends on what your situation has been up to this point. If you've just been streaming quarterbacks so far this year, Tyrod Taylor is a fine guy to try and stream this week. If you're a team has a QB that you've been rocking all season long, that's been like a borderline QB1, I wouldn't make a move. I would just stay with the quarterback you've been. If you've been using Kirk Cousins all year, just keep using Kirk Cousins. If you've been using Derek Carr, just keep using Derek Carr. But if you've been continuously streaming, then I would think about it.
I mean, they're sitting there, Tyrod's sitting there, right? And over the 3 games that he's played, at least 4 games he's played 3 quarters, he has 3 of those going for over 16.5 points. I mean, Tyrod's been good so far this year. He's been very, very good. Outside of the one game where he came back from injury, he was obviously rusty. Things just weren't clicking for him. Man, it's...
All right. I guess I will make one caveat here. There are a lot of bye weeks in week 14, and they've changed everything, and Houston is playing Seattle in that week. So I guess if you do have a roster spot to go ahead and stash him, I would do that.
I've rolled up against the Jets. All right, I'll give you guys an option, okay? We have Tannehill or we have Tyrod Taylor. Which one are y'all playing?
Tyrod for me.
Yeah, I'm not playing Tannehill, but...
I mean, Tannehill doesn't have a rushing game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
looking rough for Tannehill right now.
Oh, those 4 interceptions against Houston.
I think that's where people might lie. I might be there right now with one of my teams who rostered Tannehill, AJ Brown stack, and got Bullock as my kicker.
See, We all got hoodwinked because we're like AJ Brown and then Julio. Like, hell yeah. No. And then Derrick Henry goes out on top of it. Like, gross.
It's not been Arthur Smith needs to change the playbook, but actually I am one of the teams that's sitting there with
Arthur Smith's at the
Tannehill.
Falcons.
I'm sorry, not Arthur Smith, the new coordinator. Is it LaFleur? No. Who's there? I'm drawing a blank right now. But anyways, the offensive coordinator that took over for Arthur Smith. I apologize. All right. As for the running back position, we have Matt Breida. And Matt Breida. I actually really like Matt Breida. I love Matt Breida in the system. I love the speed. I love the ability for Buffalo to stretch this offense out. I love Matt Breida in this position. However, obviously we have a touch share, which is a big issue. And we have another issue as to where the schedule remaining is brutal. It is.
Uh-oh.
Did we lose him?
I think we might have.
Oh,
All right.
I'm back.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry. Matt Breida is in the best opportunities he's seen since, obviously, his time with the 49ers. But the 49ers, he was never going to last because the 49ers run a wide zone run scheme. The wide zone run scheme says, hey, you sprint as fast as you can to the tackle or to the tight end, find a crease, get upfield. If there's somebody that's sitting there in all the creases, then you just hit that player as hard as you can. You fall forward, you get 2 yards. You do not want to lose yards. You do not take time to read and find the holes. You just run as fast as you can. You find a crease and you hit that crease. It ends up creating injury issues for every single team that runs it. All right, we're talking about the Tennessee Titans, who prior to, Derrick Henry, had issues with LaShawn McCoy. We have seen the Green Bay Packers run it. We saw Terrell Davis, who only lasted 4 years in the NFL because of the wide zone run scheme. I mean, this thing has Ickey Woods. Back to Ickey Woods when it first started. Ickey Woods was only good for 1 year because he couldn't stay healthy. Matt Breida was not.
Didn't DeMarco Murray do that? Dallas got rid of him and sent him to Tennessee, and as soon as he got to Tennessee, he retired.
Yeah, or did I say LaShawn? I meant yeah. No, yeah. Anyways, it's something that's where Matt Breida was not built for that. Matt Breida has the speed, and he's perfect at doing these reads, where he takes his time, he finds open gap, and then he goes. But he does not want to go up against a linebacker. He does not want to go up against strong safety. He does not want to go up against defensive linemen. He wants to find the space. He wants to get open, and he wants to score. Matt Breida is that dude. However, this schedule is brutal. So if I'm somebody, right, that needs a dart throw in a deeper league, let's say you're in a league like the Fishbowl where you have 24 roster spots and maybe you have a bunch of injuries across the forefront. Maybe you're rostering Khalil Herbert in hopes that Montgomery might get hurt again. Most likely not going to happen. You need a player to step in now. I think that Matt Breida is a guy who could step in and create some relevance for you in a pinch position, but he's more so someone that I want to see if he is matchup dependent or not based off the Bills, because the Bills don't run a lot. But when they run or they pass the running back, it is hyper efficient. It is hyper efficient, and we've seen it. It doesn't happen often, but I'm willing to not call Matt Breida trash just quite yet. Why is he trash, Britt?
I don't think he's trash. I just think the snap share and whatever the Bills are doing with their running back position is just so messy. Like New Orleans next week is second best against the running back position. And last week, Singletary took 38% of the snaps. Moss took 29. Breida took 32. And then they even had Reggie Gillum taking 13. Like, there's just no clear cut. Like, you want to talk about running back by committee. This is a straight up, like, four-sided coin. Like, who's going to go?
It's an orgy at the running back position.
Yeah, like, who's going to get it? And I also think that Breida was in the cleanup role.
Hopefully Zach Wilson's mom for Chase.
We're getting canceled. But also I think that a lot of Breida's hype was when he was in the cleanup role in week 10. I put week 11, but week 10 in week 11 after the Colts demolished them. Like, I don't think that he has a viable role going forward. I think that Singletary and Moss were both hurt the week before. Maybe not hurt, but not 100% healthy. And I just think it's a headache. I think that it's a roster bomb. I think that, depending on your league, the trade deadline hasn't passed in a lot of them. Try to trade for somebody. We kind of touched on it earlier, like wide receiver depth is so deep. If you have a wide receiver that you can trade for a team for, a running back 3 or a flex 1, try to trade. Don't try to put all your hopes in like just somebody off the waiver who we really don't know their entire role yet going into the playoff push.
Yeah, and Dave actually put out an article today as well for Fantasy Football Intervention. You can find it at fantasyfootballintervention.com in the article section. He actually highlighted a bunch of guys you're trying to trade for when the trade deadline, is lining up. So big shout out to Dave for doing that. Fantasyintervention.com. Go to the articles, check out the trade section or the article section, then check out his trade deadlines. Wyatt, how are you feeling about Matt Breida?
If you love 6 touches a game, you like Matt Breida, but otherwise, it just doesn't do anything for me. That it is, as you said, they're running back by committee like to a T. No one in the backfield excites me right now. I would not feel good about playing any of them unless you like have a strong feeling that Matt Breida is going to take over the backfield and be the main dude. Which I mean, maybe because Singletary and Moss haven't really shown that much, and Breida has done, I think, better in this league than they ever have at one point. And maybe that happens, but I'm not putting a lot of chips in it.
And if you do have a feeling, I want to see your crystal ball. Hand it over.
All right, so let's go to mine. Let's go to Quadre Olison. Quadre Olison. I don't get it. I don't get it, people. Like we drafted Mike Davis, right? Did y'all draft Mike Davis? I
No.
didn't, but people did.
No, my husband did, and he kept drafting him, and I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it. It's in the dead zone. Don't do it. And I'm not normally about the dead zone kind of thing, but he's like, no, Mike Davis did really well in Carolina. And I'm like, Atlanta's a totally different system. Like, just don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do
Mike
it.
Davis is trash. He's trash. And then you went out and you picked up Wayne Gallman last week, didn't you, people? Didn't you? I mean, I don't know if you guys did, but
y'all didn't listen to Daddy's Homes and I's show last week because we were completely off of him.
Yeah,
But
it's stupid. And then now it's Olison who didn't do anything last week. He was just the best running back for the Atlanta Falcons. And yet you're still seeing these bigger websites who just want clickbait. They're putting Quadre Olison on their waiver wire pickups, and it makes no sense to me. It is completely ridiculous. Quadre Olison is a fine running back. He's okay, right? As a third string running back. If they had a good offensive line, right? Like maybe he played for the Vikings. I'd be okay with it, right? He plays for the Falcons, who have one of the worst offensive lines in the entire league. The Falcons, who have one of the worst defenses in the entire league. The Falcons, who, guess what, also have Cordell Patterson as their pass catching running back, believe it or not. And should be back in this week or the next week. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, I mean, I don't see why you would pick up Quadre Olison. Like, it's the stupidest thing to me. It's almost insulting that you would expect your readers to be so dumb that you recommend Quadre Olison and they would go and target them. Why? Why is Quadre Olison a thing? Somebody
maybe
save
there's
my
some
life.
people in some 32 team leagues who could really use Quadre Olison on their team, but otherwise, what are we doing?
Well, I think it's kind of the thing that we're going to talk about with the next avoid pickup, that people just look at the stat line. They look at the base fantasy numbers. They don't look at who was out. They don't look at game script. They don't look at really anything else going on. They just look at the pure number, right? And they're like, oh, this guy put up fantasy stats like he's good. Let's go for it. And they don't look at anything before or anything possibly after. And then go from there. Like it's lazy analysis to me, but I'm not trying to be rude, but you can't jump from Mike Davis to Wayne Gallman to Quadre Olison. And then just like, it feels to me
It'll
like
be good now. It'll work.
It just feels to me like a rat, like jumping ship, like on the ropes, connecting the ships in the dock. Like, I'm just trying to get out of this mire and not fall in the water.
As
That's how
the
it
ship's
feels
sinking.
to me. Yeah, that's how it feels to me with Quadre Olison. And you're not even jumping to a running back, like a subpar running back on another team that maybe has a chance. You're just jumping from subpar running back to subpar running back on the same team. And maybe you can't see the water line, but you're going under if you're if you're picking up Allison.
I like that line. You're good. Do you have a different take on this? Wyatt, you good? All right.
Terrible.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible. I like that. I'll take it. All right, I see we have some questions lined up again. Hunter, I see yours. Tim, I saw yours. We're going to get to those. Let's go ahead and hop onto this. What is it? One last running back, I believe. Yes. Yep. One last running back where I just don't get it. It makes no sense to me. People are literally like, recency bias is the worst sometimes. So, Dontrell Hilliard. Britt, you want to start this one out?
I just honestly don't understand this. Like, just why? Why? Like, we got the news on Sunday that Mcnichols was out with a concussion. We've already kind of talked about the Tennessee backfield being a complete mess and that Mcnichols was the pass-catching running back. So, of course, like Donta Foreman and Adrian Peterson weren't going to get those catches. They were going to promote somebody else from the practice squad, which is why Hilliard got in the game. A.J. Brown went out. Marcus Johnson went out. They had Westbrook-Ikhine and then a ton of other scrubs on Tennessee's team. So when you look at the fact that everybody else was out who was a pass catcher, of course Tannehill was going to dump it down to Hilliard. Of course they were going to put Hilliard into run. Like it was just a factor of everybody else going out. It's not indicative of their game plan going forward. And Mcnichols is going to be back next week. A bunch of other people were jumping on the fact that they dropped AP today. I still don't think that matters. I still think Hilliard is a third down relief back at best. Mcnichols proved himself behind Derrick Henry. It's just, and they're going against New England and they have a bye. No, not doing it. No.
You just spit out your food next. I feel like that's like, I don't like it.
No,
all
but
right.
it's just so gross.
Wyatt, do you have a different take on this before I go on my rant?
No, do not pick up Dontrell Hilliard. It's not worth it.
All right.
But he got elevated from the practice squad and they cut AP, so obviously they like
AP only
him.
got cut because they realized Donta Foreman is at least serviceable, and that's all AP was, and they don't need to keep AP anymore. And Jerry McNichols is coming back, so there's really no point in keeping him on the roster.
No, exactly. And I think actually, before Chase goes on his rant, Marcus Johnson got placed on IR today. So I think they actually move Hilliard into more of a pass catching, like running back wide receiver hybrid role, kind of like Felton, where they run him in wide receiver routes rather than actually playing him as a real running back. But Chase, please take it away because I really want to hear this.
All right. So if y'all don't know, I write for Trophy Smack, right? The company that was on Shark Tank. You guys go find it at trophysmack.com. If you go at the very top to the right, there's something called the Smack Zone. And what I do in these articles is I just talk shit. I talk shit the entire article. It's almost like unprofessional to an extent. Like it's not appealing for companies. But when I had this opportunity, they're like, hey, you can just talk shit through an article. I'm like, oh, I'm down. I am so down with this. Like I get to talk to people about players I don't like in a fashion where people can agree and have fun with it, right? Like it's not the typical article where you read on ESPN where it's like, oh, yada, 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 yada. It's like I get to actually put some personality into this and some emphasis. So if you guys haven't had a chance to go check it out, trophysmack.com, go to the Smack Zone, and it's the Week 12 waiver wire trash list where I get trash players. And Hilliard was my biggest one because Hilliard, there were 18 games in 2021 where a running back had 8+ receptions, all right? Hilliard's 4.7 yards per target were dead last for the position. There was, however, a player that actually was on this list, right? That was a player who took his 8 receptions for 79 yards. The Titans' other running back, Jerry McNichols, who, by the way, like we talked about, was out week 11. I mean, you have to be ridiculously, self-confident and ignorant to an extent, or oblivious, however you want to say it, asinine, to think that Hilliard is actually going to be successful when Mcnichols comes back. I mean, they had no wide receivers healthy. A.J. Brown was only playing 60% or 50% of the offensive passing snaps because he wasn't healthy. He kept on getting hurt. He kept on having to go to the sidelines. They had nobody. And to sit there and think that you have a practice squad running back who, has had 22 total receptions in his career, if you take out week 11. And now all of a sudden this guy is the biggest waiver wire pickup. And he's everybody's number one. It is asinine to put that, and it is absolutely irresponsible as a fantasy analyst to put these on this website. But people need clicks. They need clicks. So, of course, that's what they do. They sit there and they put Dontrell Hilliard on their number one waiver wire pickup because guess what? That's what's trending. That's what people are looking up right now is what is Dontrell Hilliard's chance of going off this week? It is irresponsible. It is stupid. He's played meaningless snaps for pretty much 2 seasons. He's been on the practice squad, like Britt brought up. And the Patriots, right? They have they're up next on the sheet. Every opponent after that has a top 15 dump off containment efficiency score. Dude, he took 8 receptions and got it for 47 yards, and y'all are touting this man.
But he caught passes, but he did
ridiculous.
the snaps.
Get out of here with Dontrell Hilliard. Please get yourself out of there. And if you guys want to check out the rest of my pieces, y'all want to hear, some more smack talking and reasons why you shouldn't just waste your fab or waste your waiver wire priority pickup, go to trophysmack.com. Go to the Trophy Smack section. We have articles from Mike Viella, right? Daddy's Home FF. We have articles from Cooterdoodle, who, if you're on Twitter, you obviously must know who Cooterdoodle is. Cody Carpentier has some input every once in a blue moon over there, and we're looking to build the team as well over this off season. So go check it out, trophysmack.com, and go join us over there and read some Smack Talk articles. But let's hop on to this question because we are going to wide receivers, and we did have a starter sit question. We normally don't answer these on Tuesday. Tuesdays are the no waiver wire or no starter sit question answers. We have Gallup, Claypool, and Pittman. Pittman's already locked for me. I already talked about it. He's a lock every single week. He had an unfortunate week, but I would not fade him in upcoming weeks. He's shown that he can produce up against top options. At this point, with everybody out in the Thanksgiving Day game, I'm going to go with Gallup over Claypool. Do either one of y'all have a difference of opinion?
I like Gallup.
Yeah, I think Denzel Ward's probably going to cover Gallup, but Gallup has such vertical mobility. I think that matchup's going to be a real slap in the face for Ward. Or not Ward. Sorry. Gosh, I'm really tired. Jonathan Abram. And I think Gallup's just going to soar all over him and catch. I think Dak's going to lob the ball a little bit high. Gallup's going to go up, grab that. And I think it's going to be a real slap in the face. And then I think they're going to run Zeke and Pollard down the Raiders' throats. At least I hope so. Maybe I'm manifesting, but
it's going to be a lot of play action. A lot of play action.
Yep. But I really do like Gallup. I mean, he's the number one if Lamb doesn't go, right? So
yeah, I think they need Gallup.
Gallup is going to be a part of this offensive scheme. I think he's going to work a lot of play action fake. Tim Sullivan asked 14-team non-PPR, which is kind of crazy. Don't see that very often. Waller or Henry, Wentz or Wilson. Once again, I don't like to get into these starter-sit questions. Starter-sit questions just because we don't know enough right now. I mean, I'm still trying to recover from the Week 11 madness that happened.
From the bomb.
Yeah, I mean, Waller did great, but he's heavily reliant on the PPR aspect. Meanwhile, Henry keeps on scoring touchdowns. I don't even, haven't even looked at the matchups this week, so I don't want to answer that. As for Wentz and Wilson has, somewhat. I don't want to get into this one. Like, I have to look at the matchups. I don't want to offer some false advice that might put you in a bad spot. Do either one of y'all feel comfortable in either one of these?
Still trust the volume at tight end and go with Darren Waller. You don't want to rely on his Henry's outlier touchdown percentage. I'd rather rely on Waller's heavy volume and never Zach Wilson. Unless that's Russell Wilson.
That's what I was thinking was Russell.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, honestly, it could be a question either way. Russell Wilson over Wentz. Wilson, though, despite looking bad since coming back from his finger injury, gets Washington this week, who is garbage.
Well, so In non-PPR, if you're just looking at straight up receptions, Tennessee's allowed 12 receptions to the tight end position, and Dallas has allowed 23. So, I think you still have to go Waller. The volume's just so high there. And I really still think that Waller's going to get a touchdown against Dallas.
Hey, Tim, join us tomorrow night. We're on with Jacob, obviously, and Shane. Tomorrow night, like, I prep for this entire week coming up, and I start looking at matchups like this. I'll look up this one in particular. In fact, I'm going to write it down right now. But yeah, come back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and bring this question, and we'll answer it for you. All right, so let's hop on to one more. Oh, it's another question from Tim, and then we'll try to finish this up. We have any news about Kamara and Kareem Hunt's health? And I haven't gotten anything. What have you all seen? I expect Kamara to play this week. Kareem Hunt, I expect him to play, but in a very limited fashion if he does play. Have you all seen any news about it? Because I've been busy doing editing and whatnot for all the websites.
Kamara was a non-participant today, so that's not great, but it's still early on in the week.
Not for a Thursday game, though.
Yeah, it's very true. But maybe that is part of the reason why he's a non-participant, is that they're just making sure he's ready.
Ingram didn't practice today either, and they just activated Tony Jones off of IR last week. So that's going to be something that we really need to tune into tomorrow and see what happens. And because Kamara was kind of a late scratch last week, right? And then Ingram got hurt on Sunday. So I imagine with Kareem Hunt, Cleveland's bye is next week. I don't think he comes back until week 14. So I think they're going to give him another week and let Dearness Johnson remain the backup to Chubb.
Yeah, and Hunt was fairly close to playing last week. I think he's going to return this week. You just have to monitor to see if he could send some practice time or not.
Yeah, this is somewhere we have to monitor reports, and we'll have a more accurate description going into the Thursday game tomorrow night as for that. So make sure you guys join us over there, youtube.com/fantasyintervention, and you can actually find these reports. So let's go into another wide receiver that we want to trash, and I want to trash the hell out of this player. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who I love, by the way, in certain matchups for DFS performances. I study his usage rates and everything versus defenses very heavily, and I love playing him in certain lineups. Playing him in a lot of DFS this week. After they announced Lazard being out, why are y'all trashing him, or why are you trashing Britt?
Well, the matchup last week, he was paired against Bashaud Breeland. Bashaud Breeland has a 51 PFF grade, or had one in week 10. He allowed 6 receptions on 7 targets and an average of 1.87 yards per route run. That's really, really bad. He also Valdez-Scantling saw 10 targets last week, but even in the previous 2 weeks against the pretty weak defenses, he only saw 2 each. He might be a good streamer this week just because it's the Rams, and I imagine that Jalen Ramsey is going to shadow Devonta Adams, but Aaron Jones and Alan Lazard could be back pretty soon, so I definitely wouldn't want to spend a bunch of fab on him. And also his stat line was misleading. Again, we've been talking about that all night. He got most of his yards on a big 75-yard touchdown bomb.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that sitting there looking at MVS, it's a cheap parlor trick to an extent. He has these big games in Minnesota. Week 1 in 2020, he went off on a few receptions as well. I think he's seen a combined, 3 games or so in the past 3 seasons where he saw over 4 targets. And when you're relying on big playability, you also have to match it up with teams that allow big plays. And Minnesota somewhat has been one of them. Once the Green Bay Packers went down, it was obvious they were going to have to attempt a bunch of, big passes. So MVS automatically in. We didn't know that going into the matchup, but still you wanted to take a chance with them. As for the Rams, they allow at least explosive pass play rates in the entire NFL. They don't allow a lot of big passes. They literally let teams pass underneath to them, and I've covered it week after week after week after week after week. I'm sitting there talking about DeAndre Swift and Hawkinson getting receptions. I'm talking about every single slot receiver because, and I've talked about this 1,000 times as well. When the Rams play defense, they allow Jalen Ramsey on first down to play off coverage. He plays in the slot, but he almost plays like where a safety lines up, where he can come up and he can try and grab an interception on a receiver running a comeback route. It allows for teams to take advantage of this and call quick hitting plays. Meanwhile, teams think that they can't take, or, the offenses can take advantage of it, and they run these double routes. And all of a sudden you have a deep reception going to the slot corner and it's, hitting for a touchdown. However, MVS doesn't play that position. He plays on the outside where they will double him going long on every single play almost. They do not allow these big play percentages. MVS is not only a fade as a waiver wire pickup for the future, he's a waiver wire he's a waiver wire fade, especially for this week. Like if you are going up against a team that is starting them, go ahead and celebrate because they got bad advice from a website. I promise you that.
Yeah, MVS is a lottery ticket every week. And it's, that's never a really good proposition for you. Is there a possible situation where you are absolutely strapped at wide receiver and your matchup is not looking good and you're like, is there anybody out there who has the possibility of hitting 20 points for me this week? MVS is that guy, and maybe you just say, I'm going to send a prayer up, and hopefully MVS catches another long touchdown for me this week. But that's like the only situation I could possibly even imagine wanting to go down that road.
All right, so let's hop on to one more, then we have a tight end. And honestly, I don't really have anything else to add from what you said, Britt, so I'm going to let you read this off. And then I'll go from there to the tight ends as we try to push through this because I want to make it to Wyatt's gems. I want to make it to his gems because he has some really great gems on here.
Yeah, there are really a lot of good ones. This one shouldn't take long because we kind of already touched on this when we were talking about Dontrell Hilliard, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, right? AJ Brown, Marcus Johnson, Jeremy Mcnichols were all out or went out. The Titans were playing Houston. Their defense has allowed the second most points to wide receivers in the league, but they're playing the Patriots in week 12. They're allowing the third fewest fantasy points to wide receivers over the past 4 weeks. Marcus Johnson just went on IR. I literally want nothing to do with this. There's no way. There's no way that Belichick doesn't scheme to shut down everybody on Tennessee. I think that they're smoke and mirrors. I've thought that they're smoke and mirrors this entire season. I want nothing to do with it.
All right, let's hop on the tight ends. And you have Evan Ingram over here, which I feel like we put on this list almost every week.
I can't believe that everybody still keeps talking about him.
It's so terrible. He's one of the worst tight ends the NFL has ever seen, and yet people still talk about him. I mean, I've made this joke forever, but if you haven't heard it, if you're new in here, I know Wyatt probably hasn't heard this, but I mean, he's in competition with Eric Ebron to be the champion of the drop passes, list of tight ends since Kellen Winslow. I mean, there's 3 tight ends in NFL history who have rocks for hands and teams still continue to target because they're athletic. And that's Eric Ebron, that's Evan Ingram, and that's Kellen Winslow. And you might as well just keep fading him because, I mean, even with a great matchup, he just is not there. He's not there. Yeah.
Everybody's like, yeah, you play all your tight ends against the Eagles, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, not this tight end. Kyle Rudolph got 1 target yesterday and 1 catch and still ended up with more fantasy points than Evan Ingram. You just don't do it. Don't fall into the trap. Maybe with the departure of Jason Garrett, they're going to switch this up, but I don't see them fixing this in a week, especially against a divisional opponent. So, yeah, I ain't going to be streaming Evan Ingram this week.
All right, so let's hop on to these gems real quick because, oh, by the way, side note, don't pick up Austin Hooper. If you guys want to find it, you can go to my Trophy Smack article, trophysmack.com, go to the Smack Zone. Y'all can find that. I want to talk about these gems real quick because Wyatt actually put some time in, right? He wasn't required to. He's like, hey, what should I do for the show? I'm like, dude, just hang back and relax. You can work off our show sheet. He's like, no, I want to do some shit. So he ended up putting his own notes. And he talks about some gems to pick up on the waiver wire, something that, players are really low rostership, nobody's really talking about, or people are fading. So at the quarterback position, Wyatt, what did you have for your quarterback?
Yeah, Taylor Heineke rostered in 12.8% of ESPN leagues. But this season he has 4 games over 20 points. He's getting ready to face Seattle this week, who's going to be without their top 2 cornerbacks. And that Seattle team just gave up over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns to Colt freaking McCoy. Like, I think that we can all say that Taylor Heineke is probably a better quarterback than Colt McCoy at this point. I don't think that's a crazy statement. And Heineke can give you a lot with his legs any given game. So I think he's a streamable quarterback against Seattle.
And can we talk about the fact that he's going to get Logan Thomas back? And how many points did Seattle just give up to Zach Ertz against Colt McCoy? Like, I think that's a smash.
I lost a bet with somebody in my Dynasty League about that. I was like, yeah, Zach Ertz won't put up points for the next 3 weeks. He's got a bye. He's got Seattle's been good. Like, no, they obviously did not pay attention to Zach Ertz near enough. He dominated, but he also had a great game as a tight end, by the way. Like, dude, that shielding catch that he had, like, he is he's an expert at getting touchdowns in the end zone, or I'm sorry, he's getting targets in the end zone. He's an expert at converting them into touchdowns. I mean, he's obviously a seasoned pro, one of the best seasoned pros in the NFL at doing so. And I mean, when we talk about players that had great careers, I mean, great finishes to their careers, I mean, he's going to finish among them. He might have gone through a couple years where he had a little bit of a rough spot, but he's going to finish up as a great tight end in the NFL.
Well, yeah, he had 3 targets and I think 3 receptions, but 2 of those were for touchdowns in the first half of the game. I mean, he knows how to convert. He knows how to read defenses. And I mean, Logan Thomas is pretty much the same way. Like, he's an ex-quarterback, right?
Yeah, he's figuring it out.
So he knows how to read defenses. And if the only thing that I'm a little tepid about is that he has been on IR for so long, and I'm a little bit worried about the rapport between him and Heineke, but you can't go wrong against Seattle. So I think they're still going to put up some points.
All right, this next gem that we have is a guy who this is my last chance. This is my last hurrah with him because I've been touting him and I've been hoping for it. And I'm like, all right, this is it. If he doesn't do it this week, then he's off my best ball teams, which I cannot do. I'm going to emotionally block him out of my best ball teams because I picked him up for the reasons that we've seen. And now he has a perfect opportunity. So tell us who that is at the running back position.
David Johnson, which it
David
hurts
Johnson.
to even say those words. Like, it's weird, especially at this point in the season. But they did just release Phillip Lindsay, which is pretty much, I think, settled that it is David Johnson and Rex Burkhead as the 2 guys in the backfield. And we've seen that David Johnson is their preferred pass catching running back, which we all love in our fantasy running backs. He has 34 targets so far this season. And best of all, he gets to face the Jets, who are the worst rush defense I think I've ever seen. Like, they're historically bad against running backs. If you have a running back playing against the Jets, it's a pretty good idea to put them in your lineup. We see it every week. Multiple running backs on the same team scoring a lot of points against the Jets. So I weirdly like David Johnson.
Guess what? The Jets are also 26th up against pass catching running backs according to the Dose score. They've allowed 13.5 points per game to the running back position. 6.4 receptions per game to the running back position. 59 yards. The only thing they're lacking over there is the touchdowns. David Johnson could be it this week. Oh my God, David Johnson is so sexy, but I didn't want to tout it too much because I touted all season, and it's getting so frustrating to not hit when it's like the perfect situation for him. I feel like this once again could be another week where, I eat my words, and I didn't want to tout him too much, but he's in the perfect spot. And with Phillip Lindsay getting cut, I mean, like I said, this is make or break for David Johnson. He either gets it or he doesn't.
Yeah, if it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit. But you could not ask for a much more perfect matchup. I really think the over-under on this game is 44.5. And I think this game is honestly going to be a sneaky shootout.
It's the gross shootout of the week.
It is, but it's going to be so fun. Like, let's just see
if bad
where
football
these
is
players.
fun, then you'll love this game.
Let's just see where all these people are going to get traded. because, they're still professional football players. They're still going to do well. But the Texans have obviously shown that they are just tanking and don't give a shit about anybody on their team. So
my favorite take of the entire offseason, was that David Johnson would be the one that would get cut, right? Like, no matter what happened, David Johnson was off the roster. And I'm like, there's no way he's off the roster because they're not going to cut him. I think it was like $4 million they're going to lose. And, he still offers an element that none of the other players offered. I'm just like, what do you mean? Philip Lindsay can catch passes. Philip Lindsay's the worst pass-catching running back in the history in the NFL. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. Go back and look at the stats. I mean,
really bad.
What was it, last season? 50% catch rate, barely any yards after the catch. He's one of the worst pass-catching running backs in the history of the NFL, but since he was small, he got the narrative. Meanwhile, Rex Burkhead had one game back in like 2020, I think it was, maybe 2019, where he had like 3 receiving touchdowns because I think it was up against the Texans, actually, and he just tore him apart. Meanwhile, Mark Ingram was going to get all the rushing first and second down work, so David Johnson had to get cut. And now we're just looking at Rex Burkhead, who, by the way, I don't think has played a full season his entire career, and David Johnson. So...
No. Well, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm done.
I didn't hear your pause, but I feel like Burkhead and Lindsay are both like those tiny, like little running backs. And I just keep hearing this, like, the meet the parents thing. Like, yeah, Philip Lindsay's 5'7", like Burkhead's 5'7". Like, I'm small too. I'm 5'7" too. Can I be a running back? Like, I have nipples. Can you milk me? Kind of thing, like from Meet the Parents. Like, that's all I feel. Like, just because you're small doesn't mean that you're good.
Yeah. It was a funny narrative where he was the one that was going to be getting cut, although nobody else had guaranteed, money attached to their contracts outside of Ingram. So I love that take. As for your wide receiver position, Russell Gage, Wyatt. Why is he a gem?
So since he came back from his injury, he's basically got 10 PPR points in 3 of those 4 games. One of those games was 9.9 points. I'm counting that as hitting that 10. He's averaging just over 6 targets a game in that time frame. He gets to face the Jaguars this week, who allow the 10th most receiving yards to wide receivers. And Cordell Patterson is probably going to be back this week. And I actually think that helps Russell Gage because then all the focus will be on Cordell Patterson and Kyle Pitts. Russell Gage can run free in the middle of the defense, and Ryan should hopefully be checking it down to him because his line can't block for him. So I think it sets up well for Russell Gage to catch a lot of passes in the middle of the field. I think he can have a good game this week.
Yeah, I agree with you that he could have a good game. He's not somebody that I actually want to pick up in roster. For the gems, Russ is somebody that nobody else is really talking about, nobody else is thinking about. And Russell Gage has a little bit higher roster expectation. It's not that I don't think that he has a chance to perform. It's like, what level of risk do you want to put forth? Because 2 games ago he had 5 receptions or 5 targets, 7 targets for 0 receptions. It's a little bit nerve-wracking playing the Atlanta offense, but if I'm wrong about that, then you have to make sure you bring it on Twitter and be like, hey, yeah, Chase said that Russell Gage wasn't going to go off.
Oh, I'll let you know.
Oh, please do. Go ahead.
Atlanta's just so like, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to be that Atlanta team that like beat the Saints, or are you going to be the team that like went 43-3 against the Cowboys? Like, what? It's like a Jekyll and Hyde offense every single time. And depending on how the game script goes and how much you cover either Gage or Patterson or Pitts, like how your coverage is distributed, it's just really iffy. So, and Gage isn't a really big guy either. So,
yeah.
No, he's not.
Well, let's talk about a guy who added 50 or 22 pounds since coming into the league. Josiah DeGuara, who's your tight end.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, guy owned in 0.2% of ESPN leagues. 3rd round pick for the Packers last year, but missed most of the year due to injury. But he's actually pretty athletic and was highly productive in college. He caught his first touchdown last week. And basically, it's really simple for me. Of the tight ends left on the Green Bay roster after Robert Tonyan went out, he's the guy most likely to be the receiving tight end because Mercedes Lewis is more of a blocking tight end. And you could do much worse than the receiving tight end for Aaron Rodgers, who could catch a touchdown any week. And if you're having to stream your tight end, that's basically all you're looking for. Can this guy catch a touchdown this week? And honestly, DeGuara's got to be kind of high on that list of these streaming tight ends when you've got Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen injuries, completely deplete this offense, and it's tough to sit there and say, hey, Tonyan didn't produce, so why would Josiah produce? And I think that sitting there and breaking it down, it seems like they have more of a chemistry as it's gone on. And Aaron Rodgers has seemed to trust his tight ends, DeGuara independently, a little bit more often as of late. So I don't hate this. I think it's something that it's more of a stash, prospect versus a pick up and roll out there. But that's what you're looking for in the gems. You're looking for a player who could end up producing in the future. So if you're somebody in a league where you're tight end premium, you have somebody that you need to end up playing, I think DeGuara is an excellent option. But that's going to bring us to the end of the show. It has been the longest show that we've had on a Tuesday night by about, 35 minutes or so. At least 25 minutes. We'll say 25 minutes. Wyatt, thank you for coming on. We appreciate you, man. Can you let everybody know where to find you that's still listening?
Yeah, find me on Twitter at WyattB_FF. You can find all my content through my Twitter, so hit me up there.
Oh, yeah. Britt, what you got going on?
Oh, thank you, Wyatt, so much for joining us. It was so fun. I love having the different, it's just so nice. You can find me.
She just doesn't listen to me the whole time. That's
no.
She had a great time last week with Mike, and now she had a great time this week with you. She's just tired of me.
No, that's it.
Did you talk about Zach Wilson's mom last week too?
No, I didn't.
Mike was on, so I mean,
I've just done a whole season with you basically, so I know what you're gonna say. It's good to have a little bit of spontaneity thrown in. But you can find me on Twitter at Britt_Flynn. I do this show. Tomorrow I will have a post waiver wire article. Maybe the people who you didn't get on your waiver claims that are still out there. I have to think about all the things that I do now. I do a Sunday morning podcast, The Calm Before the Storm, with Kevin Tompkins and Gary Haddow. I do a weekly DFS value article on fightingchancefantasy.com. And this week I put out a bonus DFS article for the Thursday Thanksgiving games on fightingchance.com. So I think I hit everything, maybe.
Go on. I can't wait to check out the bonus.
Like I said, I cooked, I wrote all day. I'm going to a movie. Best life, dude.
Living your best life. That's amazing. I'm stoked for you. I'm also stoked for the people that get to tune in this show every single Tuesday. We're going to be doing waiver wires, but it's not over yet. We're going to have some sort of layout as we move forward, whether it's rookie based, whether it's prospect based from players who are still in the NFL who might have to break out. We're discussing it. We will still have a Tuesday show, but y'all can go check me out over there at FF_intervention. You guys can find all of our content over there at fantasy or join our circle _ over there on Twitter, fantasyintervention.com. You guys can go check out all of our content over there at Trophy Smack, trophysmack.com. Go to the Smack Zone. You guys can check out my articles on the week, whatever it is, waiver wire, pickups to trash, where I trash pickup or players who other websites are telling you to pick up that you should not pick up. You guys can also go grab a belt over there at trophysmack.com. Use promo code CIRCLE. If you guys buy a trophy or a belt, you will get a free ring included. The ring is valued at $60. Use promo code CIRCLE. Make sure that either the trophy or the belt is included in the cart with the ring. You guys can also go find me over there at playerprofiler.com. That's playerprofiler.com for my DFS articles, which come out where I target certain matchups. And you guys can find me every other Sunday at Dynasty Happy Hour. Yes, that's Dynasty Happy Hour. We talk about dynasty moves and, we kind of recap the weeks and talk about certain players that might have impressed us for the dynasty aspect of football. Woo! Oh, man. You guys can...
Those were mouthfuls.
Oh, I'm still going. You guys can also go find me at Some Yards over there on Facebook and on Twitter. I'm looking to start this back up for next year. If you're interested in helping out, please get at me where we work with kids with special needs and teach them how to play fantasy football, somewhat of a hobby, but also an interactive source and fantasy football discussion. Big shout out to you guys for joining us, bringing in these questions. Keep it coming. Thank you guys for listening. And thank you for letting Britt, Wyatt, and myself intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.